Okay, we are recording.
Right on.
Welcome. Thank you very much for being here. I know that people will be coming and going to join us live today on our Women Built to Scale webinar for September 10th. And I want to start out by thanking and introducing my co-host today. This is very much just a casual conversation, a dialogue about how does co-working and community building actually help you scale your business and your impact, what you're up to in the world. All of our co-hosts today, which I'll introduce you in a second, are all innovators who are leading co-working spaces in different areas in Canada. So I thought, who best to go to that is living, eating, breathing, sleeping this right now? And where does co-working and community building, where does it fit in this whole conversation that we've been having this year so far about what does it take for a woman to fully scale her potential as a leader in Canada? So where does this fit in? Okay, I am going to start by introductions in no particular order. And thank you so much for being with me today to host this conversation. Because if it was just me talking about this, it'd be a pretty short conversation. So starting with my new buddy, Justin from Regina, who is one of our event partners in our upcoming accelerator. Justin is the general manager of Path Cowork in Regina. And he's recently entered the co-working realm. He comes from a marketing background with both freelancing and agency experience. His branding is his specialty, as is leading teams. And Justin, if there was one thing to add to that short intro, I'd ask you to comment on maybe one interesting thing that we don't yet know about you that you'd like to share, or why you think today's conversation is just a really relevant one to have, why you accepted the invitation to be part of it.
Certainly. Well, I think first off, we're very fresh and new at Path. So I think building new relationships with different people and just being able to be exposed to different perceptions of people who are both running co-working spaces as well as people that are interested in working out of them is really important. Something interesting outside of the fact that we just opened about a month ago about myself. So I guess that, and one of the topics that I'll talk today is about teamwork. And that's kind of something that's always been very important to me growing up playing university basketball. And some of my passions in those regards, I definitely am trying to carry over into the team environment that we're attempting to make here at Path.
That's very cool. Thank you. Okay. Don't let me forget to really focus on that team bit, because you and I have some athletic performance synergies going on. I could see we're going to talk about that when I...
Anyways.
Cool. Okay. And on our screen sitting beside Justin is Christina Carlson. Christina is also an event partner of ours in our upcoming accelerator in Regina that is coming up in just a couple of weeks. And she's from Queen City Collective. Super grateful for the friendship, the collaboration that is coming out of Regina right now. Hugely appreciative from this West Coaster that is looking to make an impact in your great province. Christina is the owner of Queen City Collective, and it is a community co-working space that celebrates the pursuit of entrepreneurship through collaboration, creativity, and innovation. And she's also a business consultant and the managing partner of Carlson Consulting Services, using her expertise in facilitation and transitioning change to guide organizations. Christina, I'm going to ask you the same question. One thing we don't know about you yet that you'd like us to know, and also why you accepted to be on today's webinar.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. This is really exciting, and I'm excited to talk with everyone today about co-working, especially around women scaling their business, because as Justin mentioned, he's a month in new and I'm 6 months new. So co-working is a really new concept to our city, and it's really exciting to have these conversations and get people excited. And And really, it's just about letting people know they don't have to do this by themselves anymore, right? We don't have to sit in our silos or in our basements or in our, coffee shops with their earbuds in and not have other people around to either inspire us to keep growing or to ask questions or share values or, exchange service, whatever you need, right? So this is exciting for me to do that. Which is why I'm here. And one thing you don't know about me, there's lots that people don't know. I'm sure I could share. I run a co-working space and have a business consulting firm, but by background, I have a molecular biology degree and an oil painting minor. So I have a very topsy-turvy path that got me here, so that we can say for another day, but lots of people don't know that part about me, so.
Very cool. Lots of bits and pieces. I think it's so interesting. I love people's stories. And it's interesting what you said about, working in silos. The biggest part of getting the four of you together is, one of my little secret, desires is how do we magnify and leverage the energy that's going into co-working? Like, so how do we take all of the greatness that you guys are putting into your individual cities and your individual spaces and really create one national movement, around co-working? So how can you imagine that you're a member of Angie's and you're all about Nanaimo and Vancouver Island, but really your market and where you see yourself to scale your business or your leadership impact is nationally in Canada. So we do that by us starting to practice what we preach in community building amongst ourselves. And, literally that's what today is all about. So that's my secret desire, not so secret anymore. Okay. Meredith Garritsen is a new colleague of mine from Hervana in downtown Vancouver. And after a rewarding career in renewable energy, Meredith was ready to embark on her own venture that aligned with her values and her interests. And she wanted to serve a gap that she had experienced. Hervana co-working space is where Meredith has founded, and it's the only women-focused co-working community in Vancouver, opening their physical location just a few short months ago. Welcome, Meredith. Just wondering again what you'd like to share with us this morning that we might not know yet about you and why you've said yes to being here today.
Thank you, Shar. I really appreciate the invite, and I'm really excited to be here. One thing that probably you don't know about me is that I used to play competitive squash, which is a racket sport, for those who don't know, similar to racquetball, I guess, would be the easiest comparison. And I chose to share that fact because it parallels a bit the co-working environment. It's an individual sport, but you play tournaments as teams, and you play in league as teams. And I find that that's just such a beautiful way to explain what co-working is. You come in on your own and you freelance and you work for yourself, but you're kind of working in a team with the other co-workers in your space. And so I'm really excited to really dig into that and explain how that relationship forms and what beautiful things can come out of it.
Cool, very cool. And my good friend Angie on Vancouver Island, I've often referred to Angie as my other on Vancouver Island, and we've both been really busy and haven't had as much time to spend with each other lately, but I'm really thrilled that she's on the call today. And I almost feel funny introducing you. Okay, I'm going to read what it says. Here's the official introduction. She's the owner of the Networking Hub in Nanaimo on Vancouver Island. She's soon going to be launching the Be Smart Ultimate Business Event Series. She's really passionate about empowering property owners and business decision makers to design, build, and manage co-working, co-living, co-production facilities in regionally distinctive destinations as a means to achieve economic impact in the creative and technology sectors. Whoa, okay. And what would you like to add to that? And thanks for being here today.
So I'm just going to say the reason why I'm here today is because you asked, Charlene, and the one history we share is when your spheres of influence and the people that you use to bounce ideas around off ask you for something, you support them. So here I am. My how do you share one thing? I would say probably my most challenging ever interview question was, what are 2 words to describe you? So, and I asked for the interview questions in advance. So I went all weekend worried about what are 2 words. And I came up with frosted martini. And so it was quite interesting because there were 8 people in the room at the time, and they kind of, there was like a hesitation in the room. And I said, I think it's probably worth me explaining why I use those words. And one is because we can all visualize a frosted martini. And a martini is probably one of the most renowned drinks globally, right? So it doesn't matter where you go, there will be a martini on the menu. And so it's classic, it's got steeped in heritage and tradition and globally recognized. The little frosting on the side, of course, is just to, keep it interesting, keep it edgy, keep it innovative, a little sweet, little salt on the side to complement that.
Awesome. I love that. I tend to, knowing you as I do, I tend to agree with that analogy. All right, we're going to dive right in. Thank you again for being here. And I'd like to acknowledge the folks that are joining us live today. I know, to make time on a busy Monday is not sometimes easy to do. We didn't get to give you a ton of notice, so thank you. And we will definitely be sharing our recording of this as well online on our website and in an upcoming magazine. Here we are. Question number 1. This question is from Christina. Thank you very much. And once I ask the question, I'm going to ask each of you to just give me your gut comment, 30 to 60 seconds. We'll go through it. Then I'm going to open it up for a few minutes to just have a bit of a dialogue. No holds barred. Just have a conversation around it. If there's anything you'd like to add, it's pretty casual. So here's Christina's comment. Creating a space and community for entrepreneurs to be comfortable during times when they're possibly experiencing the discomforts of growing and scaling is why she started her collective space. But she's found that there is so much more that they need in order to achieve sustainable growth. So here's the question. What is the key tangible value other than physical space and the people around them? What's the key tangible value that is most needed for women and entrepreneurs, women and men, to scale sustainably? Or what gaps do you fulfill for them during the growth phase of their business? So it's really a value question. So we know what you obviously do, and thank you for the question, Christina, because this is exactly what I wanted to dive into. Past the renting desk space. It's nice to have other people around me, but what's the value I'm getting from being part of what you're doing that I am not going to get on my own? So I'm going to open that up. I'm actually going to lean on Justin, if you don't mind, to kick this off. Again, 30 to 60 seconds with a comeback remark, and then we're going to go through all of you and then open it up for discussion.
For sure. So I guess exact tangible items, I can almost speak more to the intangibles. I think a lot of the things are what are offered in co-working spaces. And I think I've been kind of going back to, I guess, 2 comments that are the real core value adds outside of just the space itself. And the first is the fostering of relationships in the space. And I think, obviously being around people is extremely important. But I think being able to, 1, be inspired by seeing people work, whether you have a direct relationship with them or not. And then 2, being able to build those relationships, acquire new skill sets, understand what type of work is going on in the space is something that is very important, and really the major value add for small businesses to use these spaces as the opportunity to expand their network in an authentic way, or even just in a social matter. And I think both social and professional growth are extremely important. And then secondly, I think the biggest value add is just being inspired by being in a new environment. And I think for the vast amount of people word that we're trying to own is reinvention. And I think just being in a place that is consistently changing and providing opportunity to see things be different on a day-to-day basis is extremely inspiring in any type of work environment.
No, thank you, Justin. That's great. Okay, I'm going to lean on Ange next, and if there's anything to add to what Justin was saying, or if you want to go a totally different direction, that's cool too.
I would say two specific things, and we service a lot of sort of freelancers, independents, but we also serve a lot of what I'll call the remote office. So there's a head office in another location, and and they need turnkey fast solutions to set up shop here in Nanaimo and the other hubs. So I would say the two very tangible value adds are ideas and compelling questions. So I'm sure everybody in the room as a community manager, when you're helping people at any given time, I get a lot of questions every day. How can I do this? And the people around you quite often will volunteer an idea or a compelling question because they have a lot of experience to add. So as people are scaling and growing, I can give you one example is, we have somebody who does Cell Pro, Bruce. He's does cell repair solutions. He's looking for ideas to scale into other hubs. So, what's the business model around scaling to other hubs? The second very tangible benefit is the network connections and leveraging not just my network. I mean, I was in business in Nanaimo in downtown for 15 years, but also in tourism and community builders tend to have a lot of connections in community. So I can share best again by an example. So we have Hasbro in our office. So they're environmental asbestos removal company, and the CEO, they had a turnover of their management staff here in the remote office, and the CEO, I could tell he just walked in, I could just see the frustration in his presence. So I just pulled him aside and I said, what do you need? What do you need today? And he said, I need 6 staff members to finish a job that I don't have enough time to be here. And within 48 hours, we had 6 staff. So it was boom, put everything, this is urgent for him in order to scale and to be, keep jobs, workflow going. And so I just basically called everybody I knew in the construction industry and said, do you know anybody that would be available within, for a 6 to 8 week project that would be available now? So we weren't the only ones working on his behalf, but you just can't underestimate those issues in the moment.
Yeah, I think on that point, from what I'm learning is, as community managers, being approachable to be asked questions is one of the most important roles that we play. And, I go through days where I feel like I don't get anything actually done. But then at the end of the day, I realized that the biggest value that I brought to our community was being able to sit down, discuss business issues, or just at more of a ground level, get to understand their business. So I totally agree.
Very cool. I love that. Meredith, what would you like to add in terms of tangible value that you are looking to create? It might be an add-on what these folks have brought up so far. Maybe you're going to take it a different direction.
Yeah, I think building on a little bit of what Justin had said, the intangibles are the magic of each space. But if we had to really pin it down to what are the tangibles, I think as in the idea of scaling, it's access to a library of resources, and those resources are the human beings that are near you. As you curate your membership through, whether you do that through community guidelines or application processes, you can really craft a space that has either a certain industry or people with a certain interest into your space, and then you have this warm audience. And you also have them as a testing board. So as you're scaling and growing and you're trying new things, you've got access to a sounding board in your immediate vicinity that you can usually get quick answers from and a quick response from, and an engaged response. And I think those are two really important things to consider when you're scaling, and whether or not a co-working space is a good place to do it.
Awesome. I like the testing, the sounding board. I think that's really valuable. Christina, where would you like to take the question? The question you asked,
Yeah, you all answered it wonderfully. Thank you. We're good. No. I think just to echo the last comment too, one thing we found in our space is as we're scaling and growing, there's extra support that we need. So a lot of our members were finding administratively their business was getting bigger, and it was harder to keep up with those like day-to-day social media and marketing or some of the admin tasks. So we've actually brought on a virtual assistant, because between all of them, they could share one retainer, right? We've mimicked this thing with a lawyer, because we all have a couple of contracts or things that we needed assistance and guidance on, but not necessarily could afford one singular one for our business. But as we're scaling and growing, as you all know, as entrepreneurs, like, you have to wear all those hats. So one thing that's been really tangible and valuable is bringing on those extra little pieces that, doesn't seem like a lot, but it actually makes a big impact that way. The other thing is really talking about the value in you. So somebody in my, as I was preparing for this, someone in my space said, I came here just so I was out of my house, but the fact that I'm surrounded by people that share value in growing, I can't help but grow. And they are seeing their business grow just by being surrounded by people who are also growing. So then that challenged me and others to have that conversation around, well, what does actual success mean to you? Like, how are you actually measuring? What are those one or two really hard things that are actually set as goals for you that you are measuring against yourself to make sure your cash flow and your success and your scaling is on track, right? So having those conversations with those groups of people who do share that value has been really, really key. And then we always talk about wholeness at Queen City Collective. So you're the biggest risk to your business at the end of the day. If you're not managing your stress, if you're not eating properly, if you're not exercising, if you're not going to see your kids when you're having the parent guilt or whatever, that's going to eat away at your business too. So, and your business success, right? So we really encourage people to have those conversations about vulnerability and those things that just, we need to make ourselves whole so that we can make our business successful too.
Very good. Very cool. Okay. If anyone has anything burning to finish off this question, I'm going to open it up in 1 second, just in case. Otherwise, we're going to move on. Some great answers. The one thing that Christina brought up, I was sitting in a meeting just a couple of months ago, and the gentleman in the meeting said, if I am not ready to grow as a leader, if me personally by 30% this year, if I'm not willing to stretch and grow and strengthen as a leader by 30%, then how can I expect my business to do that? And it really hit home for me. And so I think, it's kind of with your point is, you as the leaders of these spaces are what attracts. It's your energy that attracts the people to your spaces. Ultimately, that's why PowHERhouse always goes back to, how are we leading? Whether you're growing a business or a community or this, it doesn't matter. Like, how are you, showing up every day? So I think that your point about wholeness and whatnot is super relevant. Thank you for all your answers. Any burning last thoughts on that question, or should we move on?
Good to move on.
Good to move on. All right, here we go next. This is from Ange. Her question is, co-working and community building rely heavily on collaboration with like-minded people, as we were just talking about, with complementary skill sets and genius. And that's kind of what Meredith was saying, knowing what the skills and the talents and the gifts are of the people that you're onboarding. So if you could have it all your way, This will be fun. Name, I'm going to say 2 people, make it even more challenging. Name 2 people or companies whose skill or focus would help you to scale if you worked beside them in a co-working community of choice. So this is a question for you personally, but I think it's also a great question for people who are joining us today to think about. That is, who could you most benefit from co-working with, whether it's a famous entrepreneur or someone that you know that maybe we don't, you like to tell us about them, or a company, a person or a company whose skill or focus would help you to scale if you worked beside them closely in a co-working community of choice. So again, I'm going to open it up to each of you for 30 to 60 seconds. I'm going to give you a chance to think about it because this is Angie's question. I know she's got her answer because this is one she's trying to ask the rest of. So I'm going to open it up with her and give you a chance to think, and then we'll continue on from there. Okay, Ange, I'm dying to know.
Well, and
2 people.
That is a question, as you were opening it up to the audience, that I would love to collate all of the feedback and responses from the PowHERhouse meeting. That would be
okay.
Amazing business intelligence. I had 3. I'll be super quick. And I agree with Christina. I mean, there's admin and social media content experts in the space that they were getting on with doing their business, but there's a natural built-in audience who already know that everybody around them is probably going to use them. If you've aggregated the right people with this sort of similar style of how they do business. So that's one. The second one is a wealth and investment advisor. It could be an accountant, but potentially not, or both of those 2 skills. Again, because it's a business foundation that every single entrepreneur would have, and they have a very different mindset as far as, an entrepreneur's job or a freelancer's job is to, go out there and get all these businesses, and a wealth advisor is all about making sure the foundations are there as they grow. And so it's a good yin yang. And the third is really the in-house mentors and business coaches. And while the default is as particular, we're all reasonably small space, co-working space managers, it is our job to be frontline there. And I do become the default mentor and business coach, if nothing other than to direct them in the right direction. But the reality is that's not my core business. So I would love to have 1 or 2 mentors and business coaches that I can always defer people to, because timeliness is everything. So I don't want to have to say to people, can I talk to you next week about that in the half an hour that I have? They need those answers and those insights right now. So those are the 3.
Very good. Yeah. Oh, I'm so surprised that one answer wasn't Richard Branson, but okay.
No, that's on my back deck. That's for brainstorming.
Yeah. Meredith, will I put you too much on the spot if I go to you next?
No, I can answer. I didn't pinpoint it to a specific person. I've been trying to wrap my brain on who that one person is. I'm not really big on heroes. I really think all people are human, and heroes kind of an unfair label to place on people. So I'm going to try and by the end of this have a name, but I have 2 types of people that I just love to have around me and that I think everybody should have around them in their circle. And so one is the planner. And the one thing that I've learned as an entrepreneur, the things that I used to be good at as an employee, I could plan anything out. I had the time and the luxury of being able to really think long term and plan things out. As an entrepreneur, I found I no longer have that luxury, and I'm almost always focused on the now or in the very short term. So having somebody who's able to take a little bit of a longer term look at things on my behalf and then remind me of what I'm missing is a really big thing. So the planner for one, and then the second is the cheerleader. And, they can come from any walk of life, but just having a person who also understands at least business basics, or better yet, your business, and it just will cheer you on with all your decisions and let you know when you're doing something well.
Yeah, totally. The planner and the cheerleader. Justin, who are your two people or two types of people or companies?
Yeah. So one thing I kind of wanted to point out too, which I thought was a good point from Meredith.
Yeah.
I think in regards to different types of people or one person, that's where co-working spaces actually can prosper the most. And I think maximizing the diversity of different types of jobs and different types of people with different skill sets is actually what's going to bring the most success to any space. But saying that, there's obviously some certain groups or types of people that would be great. So there's a couple examples of even companies that we're working for. So first would be Lululemon. So they've been in our space quite a bit already. And the reason why I chose them is because they have a community mindset. They're very positive right off the bat. They're wanting to plan new events, be involved in our community, identify how they can meet new people and things like that. So I would say kind of the community involvement type of component. And then so my second one is, as I said, I'm a big basketball fan, so I'm going to say Kobe Bryant. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Mamba mentality, but the Mamba mentality is something that has been talked about in the NBA for a long time, and that's what Kobe Bryant's nickname is, the Black Mamba. And his mentality is that, he has worked harder than absolutely anybody in the game. He's also the best, or was the best during his time, but he was able to inspire an entire generation of people, not just because he was the best, because he worked harder than anybody to be the best. So I think there's already a few people in our space that are, locking in those like 15, 18 hours days that are totally an inspiration to the people in our space. And then the last one, I would say, I don't want to use the word innovation because I think it's used way too much. But I will say companies are types of people that stimulate intrigue. So for example, we have a very cool tech company working out of here. It's a group of young guys who are building this new app, and it has an insane amount of potential and is really interesting. And I think having people and companies that people are interested in when they're coming in to check out the space is extremely important because it inspires them to think out of the box as well. So kind of long.
No, I love it. Christina, what about you?
Well, I have a couple. So one thing I want to just to go off of what everyone else is talking about. One thing I'm inspiring to do is to create sort of an alumni mentorship piece for Queen City Collective. So to me, the greatest success and the thing I'd be most excited about is when people grow out of my space because they've scaled and they need their own footprint or their own staff or their own bigger company. But to have them come back and coach and mentor with the people who are new to that space, who are going through that growth and that uncomfortable, kind of place that we all get to, and we're like, can I actually do this, right? So so that's one kind of genre of person that I think we're building and I'd like to continue to build and have in our space. I picked, anyone from LSpark. I don't know if any of you follow LSpark. LSpark's like a co-working space out in Ontario, I believe in Ottawa. And they're a women's IT-based, they started as a capital fund. Now they've just opened their own footprint as well. But I've been sort of watching them over the past year, and they've just like rocketed in this space, and I really think they have something magical going on there. So I actually don't know anyone personally there, but that's just sort of a group of entrepreneurs that I think are really killing it in Canada. And I always say my favorite book is always the one I'm reading right now. And so the author of the book I'm reading is Sally Helgeson, and she authored How Women Rise, and it's a co-authored book with Marshall Goldsmith. But it's really talking about how what got you here isn't going to get you further. So there comes a point in time in our business where we need to transition into different leadership styles. We need to not just create relationships, but leverage those relationships. We need to, learn that we don't need to be the expert now. We need to have expertise and bring other people around us who can fill those gaps. There's ways to grow and scale that are going to help you further along than what you've always done to get there. And we have to learn how to let go of some of those things and transition. in the future. And so I think someone like her having that influence with people as they're getting started out in these co-working spaces is really important. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be sure to add the name of that book to our notes in case people want to grab it again. That sounds great. Yeah, the only thing I'd like to add, and I love your idea about alumni, because I think that's a great way to leverage and create a legacy of the impact that you're making in the world, is I would most want, and I think in the community that I'm building, I most want to surround myself with women that are just a mile or two ahead of me, a chapter or two ahead of me, because I want to learn from what they've learned. I want the fastest, most direct approach to wherever I'm going. And I'm not afraid to ask for questions or favors or connections in order to get there. So I always want to be around people who are slightly better than I am in any industry. So for me, it's in media, innovation, impact, politics, community, economic development. Those are all, key things that are really where my interest lies. So that would definitely be people that I am looking to hang with and be around. I think this is a great tie-in just before I jump to our next question, because I'm just kind of watching the time, which is supposed to be my job. Is there any burning thing after you've all heard each other's answers, and thanks for jumping in and saying, to add to that, anything else before we wrap this question? Because we're going to go into I want to spend the better part of the next 10 minutes just on talking about teams, talking about how does all this relate. You've just talked about who would you most like to have on your team in your space. I'd like to dig into that a little further, but just wanted to leave it. Any last comments on that question?
I just think, just echoing what everyone else has said, really talking about those core business components. Every business is going to have to do those core business things, no matter what your genre or your niche is. So to have experts either that you can reach to virtually or that are actually physically in the space, either way, I think is really important, because we all still have to pay our taxes at the end of the year kind of thing, right? So no matter what. So I think just echoing that really being clear on the disciplines you have internally and understanding in your space what the give and take is, if they're willing to provide support into the space, or what that looks like. And then from there, kind of look at the gaps and see what you can fulfill is really important. I think having that solid foundation will help people leverage those tools and catapult quicker.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, and again, not to beat on my drum too much, but I think, the experts and the learning and what we're looking to create doesn't have to be not only in your internal physical space, but what can we create virtually, and how can we come together to create, collectively, to create those experiences and put those experts forward that you're looking for, and quite honestly, more effectively coordinate our own energy and our actions by working together. Okay, the team talk from Justin. Why is teamwork important? And Justin, I'm going to ask you to help me frame this question. So just in case I massacre it, why is teamwork important, as well as the celebration of teams? Co-working spaces and the teamwork that can happen there is definitely one of the greatest values. So how do we achieve it and then sustain it? Any other context framework around that, Justin? Because we're going to dive into this one next.
For sure. So I think, I kind of chose both of those words for a couple of reasons. I think one, for me, anytime that I've experienced success, whether that's in a business setting, sporting setting, friendship setting, is when teamwork is really the foundation of that. And I think good teams, in order to continue to succeed, need to be celebrated. And I think that both of those are very important in co-working. So kind of based on that, I think teamwork is really an integral component to building a culture. And then I kind of, asked myself, okay, what does teamwork look like in a co-working space when you obviously have people that have different initiatives, perspectives, jobs. So you're not almost as direct of a team as you would be in other instances. But I think enabling people to feel as though they're part of something more in a co-working space is why this business model is thriving and growing. So kind of when I ask myself, what does teamwork look like? So I think first and foremost, it starts at the relationship level. So I think a lot of us in the management positions that we have play a huge role in that, and that's facilitating the relationships. And ultimately the goal is to be welcoming. And I think if you're able to create an atmosphere and an environment that welcomes anybody into the new space, by both introducing them to new people, but also creating that environment that makes people feel comfortable to introduce themselves to other people in the space, is what really starts to create that team and enables people to know that they can reach out to people that they both know and maybe haven't been introduced to yet. So I think knowing each other is very important. I think that kind of moves into the being celebrated component. So I think being celebrated, first of all, at co-working spaces, we need to support other businesses, and there's the businesses that are in our space, and you can do that in a number of ways, where that's promoting their business within the space, helping them with events, introducing them to services or people that you think that they can grow from. And then I think celebrating their successes is what ultimately 360s it back to helping them feel as though they're part of that team. And that can be something, as simplistic as, a social media post introducing their business and something that they've succeeded on, whether that's a new deal or a new product, whatever. Or promoting them on your new newsletter to introduce yourselves to them, things like that. So I think that's kind of my perspective. I'm sure everybody else has a lot of insight on that as well.
Cool. No, thanks so much. I really enjoy the tie-in with what does it take to really build a strong team? How do we end up so it's not just a bunch of people sharing desk space? There's a difference. Right. Meredith, you seem to really resonate with this when Justin kind of brought it up earlier. And so I wondered if you had some thoughts around this or if anything to add, or where this takes you in terms of really building that cohesive team, what that looks and feels like, and what you're trying to do at Hervana.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the teamwork piece, it's just a feeling that we're all in this together. And I think it's so easy to kind of take it at attitude like it's me against the world. As we, become adults and things occur in our life, it's easy to kind of just take that attitude. Things just keep happening to me, and this has happened and that has happened, and this didn't go my way, and so sooner or later you build up a little wall, and the wall gets bigger, and then you're constantly on the defense and just trying to make sure that your life and your business is always protected. And it gets harder and harder to trust people. So when you enter into an environment, or if you can bring an environment where people are just there for you by default and want to be in it with you by default versus having to break down a wall, it's such a powerful thing. I think everybody's had at least one experience where you either had to eat lunch alone or walked into some networking event and had to approach the first person of the evening. And it's sad and terrifying a little bit, different degrees for different people, but we've all had that feeling. And so, like Justin is saying, in just having a welcome environment, just having somebody look up and say, hey, when you walk in the door, it just makes your whole day better. And I think that at its very minimum is the beginning of building a team.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Christina, where would you like to take this conversation around building a cohesive team?
Well, I think coming into these spaces with a team perspective two things. One, it takes away the feeling that people are going to sell me stuff when I get there. Do you know what I mean? Like, we all have our own businesses and we all want to share what we do and we all want everyone to support one another. But when you come at it from a team as in we're all in this together, you take away that, oh gosh, I don't want to talk to that person because they might try to sell me the whatever they're doing, right? It completely takes that away. I've experienced it, and I know Justin's building that there. I've heard amazing things coming out of the path of doing that. So I think that's super, super important. And then the other thing it does is teams always celebrate. You know, whether you lose or win, everyone still celebrates and recognizes each other for what they're doing. And I believe in that so much. I built it into my consulting business as well. You will not work on a project with me without me trying to wrangle and arm wrestle you into some sort of recognition program for your business, because so often we get 99% complete that project or that goal or that whatever we're doing, and we're already on to the next one because we have that next great idea, and we don't fully stop and celebrate and recognize that hard work and that effort and that outcomes that we've gotten from that one thing. And I think that's part of the energy that emulates in our space, and that I like to always, we have these high five moments for people, and it's cheesy, but it forces people to stop and celebrate each other. And we don't do that enough to ourselves. So I think it's easier to celebrate others. And I think that kind of breaks down some of those barriers and those walls too, to build those relationships. Like you guys said, that's so important when you're in business for yourself, but you don't have to be by yourself, right?
Yeah, no, I love it. And what do you think? Teamwork.
So I've kind of focused on the part of the question which was about sustaining it. So, which is part of Justin's question. So we have built-in systems to sustain ongoing teamwork and celebration. So I'm just going to throw these out there as examples. So the systemic cross-promotion is, we have scheduled events where we bring together the community and introduce them to our members. It comes from a community development point of view, like, the quarterly coffee meetings for downtown. The very specific focus niche, which is about companies with the skin in the game in downtown. But that's one example. We have, again, if we focus our events around business goals and collectives, that whether they're in our space or not, there's cross-pollination. So the events are absolutely integral, which is why we are launching the BSmart Ultimate Event Series. More on that, another conversation. The next big one for us is the collaboration technology. So, just to give you some context of the evolution of our growth is, I'm at about 2.5 years into the process where there's enough cash flow, there's enough sustainability, I've got all my admin systems worked out. The next big piece for me is investing in collaboration technology, which will expand any in-person relationships that we've nurtured into a online forum, which is jobs, opportunities, collaboration, projects, community initiatives for members only. There'll be the social component, which is, this is what we want the general public to know, what's happening in our communities. Yes, it is a pre-qualified. You have to have shown engagement and I guess you have to have already demonstrated that you're a team player. But in all fairness, I haven't met a single entrepreneur, freelancer, or business decision maker that is not a community player. So that's almost a given. And and the third one is that systemic social engagement. That content is king. We've all heard it before, but you might have the best product in the world or the best service in the world, and if nobody knows about it, what's the point? So we make a very specific investment in network groups like PowHERhouse, who has not just a network, but they have a focused goal. So kudos to PowHERhouse for evolving to what you have. Another big group is the Victoria Entrepreneur Society. Again, they have demonstrated reach in their community. They have a very specific goal of positioning Victoria, the community, as entrepreneurially friendly. And the third one at the moment, which is reasonably new, but they just won BC's most entrepreneurial initiative, which is LIFT. It's Comox Valley started, but it stands for Leading, Inspiring, and Fueling. I'm missing one, LAFT, whatever. Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, I forget what the T stands for. But those are network connections that have built-in systemic cross-promotion opportunities. So, I'm always leveraging our members into those networks and that's whose jobs they are. So that's why we leverage those networks. So yeah, those are my 3. Don't underestimate the value of a hug. Really, honestly, a quick hug and celebration, or a quick hug when you can see in somebody's disposition that they're stressed, or they've just met with a client and it hasn't gone well, or they're in the job, and we have a few counselors across our spaces, and their job is to make sure that people are okay. But who's looking after those people? And really, again, that's a role of the community manager. Is we have spidey senses that other people don't necessarily have. We're super intuitive, or try to be, at least. Sometimes we get flustered and are busy doing our own things, but that is one thing that I try and be mindful of every day is put in the business systems to have systemic and sustainable celebration, teamwork, that enables people to do it themselves. So it's not my job to get the team running. It's my job to give them a training program and platforms in which to train and set a goal, but really they have to do their own hard work.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to ask you again to just think about if there's anything that's burning. We have one more question we want to hit. I just have a couple of points around teamwork, because it does really ring a bell for me as well. And that is, I wish I had it in front of me. I'm actually doing some workshop prep myself. When I think about being part of a team, I want to be part of that team because they're going to encourage me to play bigger. So when I play on my own, it's what I think I can do. When I play as part of the team, it's what I think we can do. And there's an amazing book that's out that I will share in the notes that is basically about, again, that 30%. You can either help the people in your community to figure out how to be the best of their industry, or you can help the people in your community totally disrupt what they're up to in the world, create their own freaking industry, and go after it in a really innovative way. And so I think sometimes we put those self-limiting beliefs around us if it's just us. And if we're part of a team, it goes back to what you've got you here might not be what gets you there, as Christina was saying. And the last thing I'll say about teamwork is I want the people that I surround myself with to know where they fall. You're either part of the team and you're on the court with me and you know what the goal is, or you're merely a participant sitting on the sidelines enjoying what we're doing, and that's okay. But really, I want to know who the players are and who's on the court with me, and that we're all after that same goal. So that's what excites me about teamwork and the team that we're looking to build. The last question, we're just about to wrap, but we've got a few minutes, is from Meredith, who, again, with Christina, is really focused on building a workspace and a community that holds a special female focus to it. So her question is, what place do female-focused, and it'll be interesting to get Angie and Justin's perspective as co-ed spaces, but what place do female-focused spaces hold in the whole co-working movement? And again, I'll ask you to comment on that, and this will be our final question. So Christina, I'm going to ask you to start as someone that has a like-minded vision of what you're trying to create, why women only, and where does that fit in the whole movement?
Well, I'll tell you, we are not a women-only space. We just have mostly only women. Okay. Our ratio is not that balanced right now, but we have probably an 80-20 split. Okay. Right now with men and women. In saying that, we have other businesses in our space too. that are more male focused. So it kind of balances itself out. But in saying that, one thing we talk about, I think regardless of male or female, we talk a lot about vulnerability. And what does that mean? No, like, you know, even 6 months ago, if you asked me to say the word vulnerability, I would not even want to say it out loud because it made me feel really uncomfortable. But that's part of us growing and shifting, right? Is being okay to be open. And I think it's sentimented with the whole thing about giving to someone a hug and having that spidey sense around, you know, how to console people versus boost them up. And then talking about even that word disruptor, you know, let's not make that a term that's seen negatively. When you're in a team of disruptors, it turns up and you all define it positively, then that moves you as a whole forward. And I think when we're creating our space to kind of create this co-working movement, that's really what that core essence of it is we do want to be the ones that are breaking the molds and not doing things the way they've always been done. But you get a lot of backlash from that. And so if you're moving as a community through that, then you're stronger together, and it makes it easier for the next group to come through, right? So I always say sometimes you get a tree whipped in your face because you're leaving that path, but it's going to be so much more beneficial for you and for everyone else when you get through that to the other side. So
thank you. And what are your thoughts? Where do you think the whole female co-working space fits, or where there's a need, or is there a need? What are your thoughts?
So I'm just going to add to Christina's comment about the tree getting whipped in your face. It happens all the time, but suddenly somebody whips the tree and you go, oh, look, there's a giant tree, and you can climb it. So just adding on to your comment. I have a challenge with this question because it is innately I want to stay optimistic and positive, but I just had to be controversial, is I don't think there is a place for female-only spaces. And because when you rule out 50% of the population as you start, I think you're missing a lot of the magic of covering, you know, the collaboration genius that happens in different mindsets. So that's my point of view. You know, I was trying to come up with but what is where do women work best? I haven't come up with a solution, to be honest with you. I think so it was very difficult for me to answer that question. I think, you know, in the male female, it's more of a masculine feminine mindset. We tend to be have more men in our space, but that is probably more the nature of our business model than it is the culture that I'm intentionally nurturing. Because, you know, we have the on-demand, which is the, you know, and you can book for an hour, you can book for 3 hours, you can, so, you know, you can book for the day. You don't need to be supremely invested per month in order to be participating in the Network Hub space. But, you know, we tend to attract people who are already in business. So they have existing clientele that they want to meet with. They really only need, like, you know, I have independent lawyers that live on Gabriella Island, and she comes over here, and this is her place of work for all of her Nanaimo clients, right? Because she can book 3 hours a day or 3 hours a week. She needs a professional space. She wants it on demand. She wants to know there's consistent professional greeting when her clients show up. So we get a lot of that professional side of things. You know, I intentionally foster the feminine, which I call the creative side, with things like the pop-up shop, which we have a pop-up shop going here. We have artwork that changes on a regular basis throughout the year. And, you know, you have people coming in and say, I love that this is where I do my core business, but at the end of the day, that feminine, creative, nurturing side is inherent in all of us. And so I love the fact that these creative things are happening around me. It's why we love the space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right. Like, we don't have to convince you of this question, you know, like, and so I value your opinion. I do think it's more about, you know, masculine and feminine energy and the energy that you're creating in your space than it maybe is about male and female. But, you know, we'll swing back over to Meredith as well. She's really curious on on your thoughts. And myself, as a woman-focused business, like obviously this is something, you know, dear to me. I've had people ask me many times over the years why PowHERhouse doesn't have a physical house for women to come and work out of. And so it's something that I've thought about in the past as well. And I think it's a valuable conversation, because we struggled with that even in our events. You know, we really want to create that safe space for women to come and learn and grow and together and challenge each other. And if we're not interacting with men who can sponsor and support and stand up and speak up for us, then you're right, we are potentially limiting ourselves. So I'm going to turn it over to the only male co-host, Justin. What do you think? Women-focused spaces, women-only spaces.
Well, I'm not overly educated on the topic, I must admit. I know I have done quite a bit of reading. You know, I know there's some really cool spaces in Toronto. I think it's called Make Lemonade, and so I think there's clearly been an established business model that works. I think from my perspective, going even back to what I talked about welcoming, you know, we obviously want to focus welcoming anybody regardless of their gender, race, religion, etc. So that's a very core value of ours. But I also know that, I mean, even in regards to the success you've had with PowHERhouse, that there is a lot of opportunities right now with ensuring that women entrepreneurship is being harnessed and supported to succeed in today's business world, which I think is great. So what I would say is I'm not totally sure what maybe the role that it plays in the industry. I think that if ultimately people want to be comfortable, and if somebody feels more comfortable in a specific space, such as a female-only co-working space, I think that's totally fine. I guess I'd maybe even switch this question around to Meredith and say, you know, one of our objectives is to ensure that we are effectively able to, one, target women to our space, and two, support their businesses to grow just as any other business. So I'm not sure if you have any feedback on, you know, ways that you think you can make sure that women feel the most comfortable in a space that may not just be a female-only working space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good thought. Meredith, I'm going to swing back over to you. Thank you for this question. And it's one that I haven't totally unwrapped myself. So I'm sure you and I will keep talking about this. And any thoughts on what you've heard so far? Where does that take you?
Yeah, you know, my take on it, you know, Hervana is women focused. It's not women only. And my take on having it be women focused is that it was just my mission behind Hervana was to uplift women in their journeys in building business. And I see it just as being more team building. As you had said, Char, with, you know, the participants and then those that are on the court, it's sort of building your elite team, the ones that you're most likely to make true connections with, and sort of most likely to have a shared lived experience that you can then relate to each other and make that true connection. I think when you had said about like approaching things the most direct and fast way, team building is, and having that curated team is essential to that, so that you can avoid obstacles that other people have tripped over before you. They can help you avoid those. I do understand sort of that exclusionary thought process, but you know, it's a few hours a day out of your life. So, and I felt that was something that I wanted, a space that I wanted to create, and that I found resounding interest from other women. And Justin, as far as, you know, making it more approachable or ensuring that women feel as comfortable in your space as any other member, I think there's a lot of ways to do it. You know, particularly I went so far as designing space so that it did have that more feminine feel. Like Angie, you were saying, you have a feminine energy that comes up in different spaces in your space. And I just took a focus on that and, made that my primary focus is developing that feminine energy. So it's just to me, it's just another option. It's like going for Chinese food or going for Greek food, which do I feel like today? Nobody is locked into this for life. And that's kind of just my take. I think that, it's just a different team.
Well, and I'll add to that, because I think the more clear you are as an organization on what your values are and what you're trying to convey as support to entrepreneurs and small business and whoever's in your space, you'll track that like a magnet. Like you'll get nothing else but those people, the more clear you get. And as you go through your evolution of all of your spaces, and the types of people and teams that you're building, you'll if we do basketball reference, you'll get that you're missing a center, right? And you'll attract the center because that's like the completeness of your team. And I think that is kind of what you're trying to say, right? Is you need this balance in your space, because those are the values that you hold dear and that you want to kind of build onto that with other people as they come in. So
awesome. Okay, guys, we are past time, and I want to thank you. Thank you so much. I know you're going to have to bail at any second here. So just to recap, we will continue the discussion online. If there are any people that were participating today, please feel free to add your comments and questions when we post the video. I will, if there's anything specific to any of the co-hosts, I will make sure and tag them. And thank you very much for opening up this discussion about co-working and community building. I believe there will be a follow-up webinar, so I will lean on my co-hosts to see what that might entail. Thank you for joining us today, as always, and we're looking forward to our Accelerator series coming up in Regina, September 26th to 28th, a little plug for that. And if you haven't registered, I hope we see you there if you're in or around Regina. Thanks a lot, guys.
We'll see you then.
Very, very grateful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, Charlene, for getting the conversation going.
You're welcome.
You're a powerhouse.